Today's lesson is vaccine passports. Passports to freedom? Hello, everybody. My name is Roger.
And my name is Helen.
And Helen and myself today are going to be talking about something called vaccine passports. Now, because we are American citizens, of course, if we want to come to Taiwan, we need to have passports. But a vaccine passport, what the heck is that?
Yes, that's definitely something new because usually you need a passport to travel to a foreign country because the passport is the document that shows which country you come from. It's the proof of your nationality, and you need it to enter another country. So now we're talking about vaccine passports, and that's something that is related to the COVID-19 pandemic that has been going on recently. So it's related to the ability to travel to a foreign country during these times of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Indeed, and of course, countries do not want more cases of COVID-19, so they want to check to make sure the people coming into their countries are clean, that they have had their vaccination or they have had their vaccine and they are well and they're not carrying the virus and they won't get anybody else sick. So yeah, that's I guess some permission that we could get if we want to travel to other countries in the near future.
That's right. So we will look at the details of the vaccine passport. Is it a passport to freedom or is it a passport to more rules that will inhibit your freedom?
Okay, so this is something, of course, we all need to talk about because I suppose they're going to be lifting those travel restrictions pretty soon. So let's find out some more about vaccine passports. Are they passports to freedom or slavery? We'll find out here by listening to the first part right now.
Vaccine passports. Passports to freedom? The rollout of COVID-19 vaccines has been gathering pace across the globe, with millions of people having been vaccinated against the disease. As more people receive the vaccine, the voices demanding greater freedoms are also getting louder. Could vaccine passports provide the solution?
大家好，第一部分我们看到名词 pace， 指发生的速度、节奏或是步调、步伐。举例来说 ，keep a constant pace while running， 跑步时要保持一致的速度，或是 the pace of life was slower when my parents were young， 我父母年轻时的生活步调比较慢。另外，以下补充几个包含 pace 的相关片语。第一 ，pick up the pace 表示加快速度，例如 The builders picked up the pace to finish their work on time。建筑工人加快速度，希望能及时完工。第二 ，at a snail's pace 表示瓜行牛步，慢吞吞，像是 Phil has been working at a snail's pace on the project。Phil 做那个专案进度缓慢。第三 ，put one through one's paces 表示考验点点点的能力。我们可以说 The coach put the team through their paces。教练考验那支队伍的能耐。
So today's topic is vaccine passports. Are vaccine passports a passport to freedom or a passport to slavery? Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many countries have closed their borders to foreigners in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. But now there seems to be a way to allow foreign travel to safely resume again, and it's with the use of a vaccine passport. So let's look first at the word vaccine. Now, vaccine is basically, it's a substance, a chemical that you put into your body, usually by injection, in order to provide protection against the disease, against a specific disease. So you can get a vaccine against the flu, or in this case, we're talking about a COVID-19 vaccine.
Right, and the vaccine, of course, refers to the actual medicine itself, and the process is called vaccination. Have you been vaccinated or have you gotten your shot? And of course, we're talking about vaccine passports, and of course, these are controversial. Now, let's take a look at the first paragraph. It says, the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines has been gathering pace across the globe, with millions of people having been vaccinated against the disease. So first in this sentence, we have the word rollout. That's one word. As a verb phrase, it would be to roll out something. That just means a company produces something and they introduce it to the market. And so all these different companies around the world have come up with vaccines and they are putting them out onto the market. They are rolling them out. So that's the verb phrase, to roll out, but the noun would be rollout, the rollout of the vaccine.
Yes, and this rollout has been gathering pace across the globe. And here, to gather pace means that it is happening at a higher speed. So the rollout of the COVID-19 at first may have been slow, but it has been gathering pace across the globe, meaning that it has been happening faster around the world.
Yeah, pace just refers to a step that you take and how big your steps are, basically. And also it refers to how fast you're walking or how fast you're running. And this might be related. There's a basketball team in the U.S. called the Indiana Pacers because they set the pace of the game. They move quite quickly and it's difficult to beat them. So yes, if something gathers pace, it just increases in speed. So yes, all over the world, the vaccinations have been gathering pace, or the vaccines have been gathering pace, with millions of people having been vaccinated against the disease. And I did mention this word before. To vaccinate just means to get the shot.
So the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines has been gathering pace across the globe. And it says here, as more people receive the vaccine, the voices demanding greater freedoms are also getting louder. Could vaccine passports provide the solution? So more and more people are getting vaccines, so they feel protected against this disease. And with this feeling of being protected, they are also demanding greater freedoms, the freedom to go out, to dine out, to gather with friends, and also to travel. So one solution to meeting this demand is to give people vaccine passports. So how do vaccine passports provide the solution to this problem?
Yeah, it's a good question. And exactly what are vaccine passports? We'll find out as our lesson continues. So let's move on to the next part. We will listen first.
Vaccine passports, digital health passes that provide proof of vaccination, could aid the recovery of battered economies worldwide. The hardest-hit industries, such as tourism and hospitality, are crying out for the introduction of vaccine passports to get their businesses up and running again. These passports would not only facilitate quarantine-free international travel, but also enable vaccinated individuals to visit venues such as bars, restaurants, and theaters. Currently, the passport seemed to be the only way for many establishments to safely reopen.
第二部分我们看到单字 battered 这个字是形容词，指受打击的、打垮的或是受损的。例如 Judy set up a shelter for battered children during the Civil War. Judy 为在内战中受波及的孩童设立庇护所。或是 The battered car was towed away after the accident. 毁损车辆在车祸发生后被拖走。另外，除了上面的意思，这个字还可以指裹面糊的，像是 One of Britain's signature dishes is battered fish and chips. 英国招牌菜之一是裹粉炸鱼薯条。再补充一下这个字的动词 batter， 指连续猛击、拍打。举例来说，Storms battered the coastline for 3 days. 暴风雨肆虐海岸线3天。或是 Waves battered the small boat as it entered the harbor. 海浪猛烈地拍打着进港的小船。再来，我们看到单字 venue， 这个字是名词，指活动或事件发生的场所、地点、会场。像是 Matt's band is playing a show at an outdoor venue. Matt 的乐团正在一个户外场地表演。
So we're talking about vaccine passports, and let's look at what these things exactly are. It says here, vaccine passports, digital health passes that provide proof of vaccination, could aid the recovery of battered economies worldwide. So these are basically documents, but they're digital in form. They're digital health passes, and they provide the proof that you have been vaccinated. So if you are in possession of a vaccine passport, then it means that you have been vaccinated, and you can prove this by showing your vaccine passport.
Right, we're using the word pass here. These are digital health passes. Pass as a noun is just some kind of certificate or some kind of proof that you can go a certain place. In school, you might need a hall pass, for example. In order to be out in the hallways of the school between classes, you need special permission for that. And so these are documents that give you special permission, and they show proof that you have been vaccinated, or they are proof of vaccination. They could aid or they could help the recovery of battered economies worldwide. Yes, of course, we rely on trade and tourism, and because of the pandemic, everything's been shut down and business has been really bad.
Right, so these vaccine passports can aid in the recovery of these economies. So recovery here means it's basically the process of returning to normal. So vaccine passports can help economies return to normal, return to the way they were before the pandemic hit. Because during the pandemic, many economies worldwide suffered. They became battered, which basically means that they were damaged or they experienced a lot of difficulty because they weren't able to make money, do business during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, battered economies. The economies have been bad. Batter here or battered, I tend to hear this mostly when they refer to battered wives or battered women who are suffering at the hands of their partners, their husbands and stuff like that. But we also use this word to refer to bad situations in economies. They are battered economies. They're doing poorly. And the hardest hit industries, such as tourism and hospitality, are crying out for the introduction of vaccine passports to get their businesses up and running again. So these industries have been the hardest hit, the ones that have taken the most punishment as a result of the pandemic. And we've got some examples here: tourism and hospitality, which is kind of the same thing, except hospitality refers to hotels and restaurants.
Yes, hospitality mainly refers to hotels and restaurants, and they have been hardest hit because many people were not able to go out and spend money in these places. They weren't able to stay in hotels because of the inability to travel and the inability to gather outside and enjoy meals with friends. So these industries are crying out for the introduction of vaccine passports. And here, to cry out for doesn't mean that they're literally crying out. They're crying and shedding tears. But it means instead that you can see a clear need of something in a particular situation. It's obvious that something needs to happen. So I could also say these French fries are crying out for some homemade ketchup, meaning these two would go so well together that the French fries are crying out for ketchup. But in this case, we're talking about tourism and hospitality industries that are suffering, and they are crying out or in need of the introduction of vaccine passports.
Or I could say, for example, the farmers have been suffering because of government policies, and the farmers are crying out for reform. They're crying out for justice. So here, people who work in the tourism and hospitality industries are crying out for these vaccine passports, because if people have them, they can come and stay in their hotels and visit their museums and eat their food and stuff like that. And they want these vaccine passports to get their businesses up and running again. So here, up and running just means it's fully operational. Their doors are open for business.
So these vaccine passports bring a lot of advantages because they would not only facilitate quarantine-free international travel internationally, which means they would make international quarantine-free travel happen, but they would also allow individuals to visit places such as bars, restaurants, and theaters. And here, the word facilitate means to make it possible or to make it easier for something to happen. So passports would make it easier for people to travel quarantine-free internationally, or in this case, it would make that a possibility.
Okay, so yes, that's basically saying that people will travel internationally more and more if we have these vaccine passports. But it will also enable vaccinated individuals to visit venues such as bars, restaurants, and theaters. A venue is just a place, basically. Like, where's the venue of the concert? Well, it's a Taipei Arena. That's where the concert is going to take place. That's the venue for the concert. And these venues include bars, restaurants, and theaters. And currently, the passports seem to be the only way for many establishments to safely reopen. And an establishment is basically a kind of business, right?
Yes, it's a business or an organization where people can go to get services or get products and where people make money. So, for instance, there are many co-working establishments that are popular in Taipei and around the world these days for people who don't have their own offices, so they can go to these co-working establishments to get some work done.
Cool. It's kind of a new trend. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's wrap things up now with the third part.
In countries where a sizable number of people have been vaccinated, the majority of the general public appear to be in favor of vaccine passports. Nonetheless, there are those who oppose the idea. A recent petition in the United Kingdom against introducing the passports managed to collect over 300,000 signatures, most of which were from people concerned about unequal access to services.
第三部分，我们看到单字 sizable 这个字是形容词，指非常大的。举例来说 ，The candidate has a sizable lead over his closest opponent. 那位候选人距最近的竞争对手还有相当大的领先优势。最后，我们看到片语 in favor of 加名词或是动词 ing 表示支持点点点，像是 The restaurant menu was thrown out in favor of a new one with healthier choices. 这家餐厅的菜单被换成有比较健康选择的新菜单，或是 Most of us are in favor of using these funds to renovate the school library. 我们之中多数人赞成用这些资金翻新学校图书馆。
So here we're going to look at what people's reactions are to these vaccine passports. Are people in favor of them or are people against them? Well, it says here in countries where a sizable number of people have been vaccinated, the majority of the general public appear to be in favor of vaccine passports. So in places where a lot of people, sizable here means fairly large, a fairly large number of people have already gotten the COVID-19 vaccine, in those places, people seem or appear to be in favor of vaccine passports. And to be in favor of something means to support the idea of that thing.
Right, they support them. Nonetheless, even still, there are those who oppose the idea. So here we've got nonetheless, and that means the same thing as nevertheless. It just kind of means but. We have this situation, but we need to add something to what we've just said. So again, lots of people are in favor of vaccine passports. Nonetheless, there are people who are against the idea.
Yes, and just to give you another example, I could also say, I don't like science fiction. Nonetheless, I accompanied my sister to see a science fiction movie.
And it was probably pretty good, and maybe you like science fiction now. Who knows? But yes, indeed, lots of people support it, but there are people who are against the idea of vaccine passports. A recent petition in the UK, or the United Kingdom, against introducing the passports managed to collect over 300,000 signatures, most of which were from people concerned about unequal access to services. So we're going to the UK, and people there had a petition. There was a petition, which means people signed their names to a document that say they agree with a particular political position. You may have signed a petition yourself here in Taiwan if you're against something the government is doing or something like that. So yeah, lots of people signed this petition, over 300,000 people. And yes, those people are kind of concerned about the unequal access to services. They don't think everybody's going to have a chance to get the same kind of shot.
Right. They're afraid that if they decide they don't want to get the vaccine, then they're going to be denied services, like they won't be able to go into specific restaurants or supermarkets to buy things, to get food. And there's also the concern that not everyone can have access to vaccines. So it's not freely available to everyone yet in some places. So there's also this concern of social inequality.
Yeah, people who are rich or something, or who live in London or someplace like that, can get the shots and they can travel to their heart's content. But poor people who live in the North Country or something, they don't have access to those vaccines, so it might seem unfair. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's listen now to our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分有一个句子写到，这些护照，也就是疫苗护照呢，不只促进免隔离的国际旅游，也让施打过疫苗的人可以去酒吧、餐厅、电影院等等的公共场所。句子里面用到 not only facilitate but also enable 是用来表达说不只促进怎么样，也让什么可以怎么样。好，那我们就来学习 not only but also 的用法。 not only but also 表示不只怎么样也怎么样，不仅怎么样还怎么样。那它是配对连接词，必须用来连接两个词性相同的字词。如果我们是要连接两个主词的话，记得动词是配合最靠近它的那个主词哦，也就是 but also 后面那个主词。好，举例来说， Not only the dining table but also the chairs need to be replaced. 不只是餐桌，还有椅子都需要换掉。这时候我们的动词 need 是配合最靠近的主词 the chairs， 所以我们是用 need， 不是用单数型 needs。好，另外如果要用 not only but also 来连接两个子句的话，就不能直接写作 not only 子句 but also 子句。因为 not only 摆在句首的话呢，它连接的子句要倒装，也就是把这个 be 动词啊或者是助动词移到主词前方，来形成 not only be 动词加主词，或者是 not only 助动词加主词加动词这样的句型结构。然后 but also 在连接子句的时候呢， but 跟 also 你可以择一省略。如果你想要保留 also 的话，它必须摆在 be 动词之后，一般动词之前。那么句型结构就是 but 主词 also 动词，或者是 but 主词 be 动词 also。 好，例如Not only did he direct the film, but he also starred in it. 他不仅有指导那一部电影，他也在电影里面担任主演。好，那么读到课文第三部分的最后一句，他说A recent petition in the United Kingdom against introducing the passport managed to collect over 300,000 signatures, most of which 好，这边的 which 指的就是他前面说的这个 300,000 signatures， 用来表达说在那30万份签名当中，大多数是怎么样，其中大部分怎么样。像这样的用法呢，我们就是用带有修饰语的关系代名词去说明它前方的事物，也就是对这个先行词做补充说明。好，那 which 的前面呢，我们就是可以加上量词啊、数字啊、百分比、最高级等等，加上 of。好，那这样就可以去表达先行词当中所占的比例了。像是 two of which 就是先行词当中的两个， some of which 是先行词其中的一些， the best of which 表示先行词其中最好的怎么样，还有你可以说 1/3 of which 表示先行词其中的1/3等等。举例来说， She bought 5 books. one of which was written by her friend. 她买了5本书，其中一本呢是她朋友写的，所以这时候我们的先行词就是 5 books 5本书哦，然后 one of which 就是指5本书的其中一本。好，以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Vaccine. Scientists are developing a vaccine to help prevent the spread of the virus. Pace. The author's latest book sold at an incredible pace. Recovery. The economy experienced a speedy recovery after the Depression. Facilitate. The new subway line will facilitate travel to the north of the city. Venue. There are a number of venues for your band to perform in downtown. Establishment. The establishment you're looking for is on Bridge Street. Nonetheless. The steak was a little undercooked, but it was excellent nonetheless. Petition. Thousands of people have signed a petition asking for cheaper health care.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.